A major part of the constructivist philosophy of education is how to have an active learning environment. One way to do this active learning environment is through cooperative learning and small group discussions, which we will discuss in Chapter 9. When creating small group discussions and also cooperative learning, it's very important to understand how to organize and initiate the discussion groups. We can't just haphazardly throw any number of students together and expect them to just magically begin discussing and focusing on concepts. So there's a lot of planning and organization that actually goes into the process behind that, as well as understanding that there are different small group discussion types, and then how cooperative learning in general connects to that. So, what actually does it mean to talk about discussion? So, the discussion method means that the teacher is developing a viewpoint and a way to exchange ideas. Discussion is very active, it's an active process. Both students and teachers are involved. It's not just one or the other. It does allow for students to really explore and discover some of their own perspectives and their own viewpoints and begin to articulate that. And then it also has an element of a variety of learning. So this can include content, skills, attitudes, process. A lot of different aspects of learning can be incorporated into small group discussions. When we do small group discussions, we need to understand that some of these techniques that we use can take 6 to 8 weeks to really fully develop. It does not happen overnight. Typically, these groups consist of about 4 to 8 students. That doesn't mean they can't include 3 students. That happens. Really, 8 is the max, and that's a really large group, but you need to find your ideal group size for your classroom and for your students, and then figure out a way to make it comfortable for those students to interact and talk with one another, and then give them a choice, give them different topics, different applications, so that these discussion topics are organically arising from what they're doing in class, what's being covered in the content area. So listed here are some just basic concepts of how small groups work. You need to be able to lay out the processes of how you want your groups to interact with one another. You need to have responsibilities for each member. And then you need to have some kind of role for leaders. And that doesn't mean only one person is in charge, but that different people take responsibility for different aspects of leading the group at different times. And then you create this concept of a cohesive environment. So they're all working together and they're basically a team. When giving those roles and responsibilities, remember that there needs to be enough work to share amongst however many members are in that group. If the workload is too small, then you will naturally have a group of students who do nothing in the group, which really kills the cohesive attitude between the group as a whole, because some members believe they're doing more than others, and they probably are. That's a valid feeling for those members of the group. But if there's not enough work to go around, then that's going to be a natural byproduct of it. So really think about how much work can be done with this many members. Then keep in mind how you're going to evaluate. So what do you want their progress to be? What kind of feedback are you going to give them? Tie everything to your learning objectives, and then share back your results so that they understand. So here's some examples. This is a personal data check instrument, and Students can record their interaction. Here's another evaluation form that students can do. And keep in mind that one particular benefit is that students really can begin to work together to solve problems. And this is real life application when they go out into the workplace or when they go into higher education. They will have to be expected to work with one another. So this idea that we just work in isolation all the time to solve problems is just not very realistic. Here's some different discussion types of small groups, and you can look at a table on page 253 where it details out some of those types, and then past that goes into much more depth of what are the rules for each of these, how can these be integrated into your classroom, what does this look like, and you want to understand that using a variety of these different types is good. You don't always use it for brainstorming or always use role playing. Keep variety in that. So that brings us into cooperative learning and what are the characteristics of that? There's some listed here. There is a division of labor and there is individual responsibility, but there's also that idea of working together when we have cooperative learning. And we do this because, like I mentioned earlier, this is what real life is about. Eventually, you will have to go out into the world and you will have to work with others, and you'll have to work effectively with others to solve problems or to learn new concepts. And so this cooperative learning at this level helps to begin to understand how to do that, how to navigate those waters. When you are beginning to plan this, remember, a lot of planning goes into it on the educator's part, and be patient with your students. It will take some time to fully develop these skills and develop the interaction between students. And then you'll want to monitor that and assess. So what's the productivity about? What's the progress? Is there academic progress, and what is it? And how are you going to evaluate that? And then provide feedback to your students about their progress.